Oh, what a night. It was supposed to be Little Women at the Chemainus Dinner Theatre, and it turned out to be Chemainus Chainsaw Massacre. The bus was totally vandalized. Justin from the theater hooked us up with a van and a driver so we could get the penny pinchers safely back to the hotel in Cowichan Bay. Currently, Jude and the trash bus are with the RCMP, and I'm waiting to hear what's next. Incidentally, Irene and Bunny haven't showed up, but it's past midnight and I can't care. On the way into the hotel, just to cover all my bases, I asked at the desk if that Chris David guy had signed in, and I was not surprised when they said no. I was dead tired, but I had to get down to our room and phone Jude and make sure she didn't put her foot in it with the cops. So I got some extra coffee packets from Leo and I took the elevator down. I was surprised. Our room was so quiet and just like we left it. Somehow I thought it should be different. I put 2 packets of coffee in the coffee maker, splashed some water on my face and sat down to phone Jude. Her cell phone went to voicemail. What did I tell you about cell phones? I took out the business card and I called the cops. So he answered right away, and I explained who I was and said I wanted to talk to Jude. But when he found out who I was, he wanted to take my statement because I was the first one who saw the vandalized bus. So he asked me a bunch of questions. Did I see anybody? Were there lights in the houses? Were there cars in the street? Did I hear voices? I was pretty much a zero. He ended by saying, well, if you think of anything, call us. Hey, wait, I said, I want to talk to the other bus driver. There was a pause, and then Jude came on the line. Mavis, what's happening? Well, your cell phone's going to voicemail for one thing, I said. Outside of that, the rest of us are back at the hotel and everybody's in bed, but I'm probably not asleep. What's happening with you? Well, she said, we got the police report done so we can make an insurance claim. Sorry about the voicemail. I forgot to turn the phone on after I got out of the theater. Well, what do the cops think happened? I said. Well, they went through the bus, she said, and they determined that the perpetrators entered by breaking the driver's door and unlocking it. The seats on the left side of the bus were slashed with a knife that was at least 6 inches long and 1 inch wide. The tires and the seats on the right side of the bus were drilled through with a 1/4 inch bit on a portable drill. They canvassed the neighborhood, but nobody heard or saw anything. They think it's kids. They opened a file in case we find out anything. Well, didn't you tell them about the guys following us, I said. Yeah, she sighed. Mavis, you have no idea how lame our story sounds until you try to tell it to 2 stony-faced Mounties. They especially liked the part where I said we wanted to give the music box back. Why, aren't they going to look into it? They are not the least bit interested. They filed me under crazy old lady. Well, I give them that, I said. But Jude, I saw the look on that city slicker guy's face. I'm sure they did it. Now who's the crazy old lady, she said. I ignored her. Well, when can we have the bus back? They say we can have it now because there's no point in fingerprinting it. Fingerprints could be on that bus from any time, even before the trip started. Well, we can't take it back now. It's the middle of the night. No, it's locked in their yard. Hopefully later this morning, Clarence can get out there and have it towed to his garage. Well, when are you coming home, I asked. Just a minute, she said, I'll check. So I sipped my coffee and I looked out the patio door because the lights were on in the room and there were lights in the yard. There was kind of a mirror window effect. So I could see myself sitting at the table with my cell phone and coffee cup in an expanse of grass that ran down to the sand that ended in the water. I feel as strange as that looks, I thought. Then Jude came back on the line and said, I can go now, they're finished. They're gonna give me a ride back to the hotel. See you soon. I poured myself another cup of coffee and I turned out the lights and I went and stood in the door. I wanted to be in that still darkness with the ocean, the mountains, and the stars. About half an hour later, I heard Jude scrabbling at the lock, so I went to let her in. Boy, she said, I have never been so happy to be inside of a hotel room in my whole life, she said, taking off her jacket and heading toward the bathroom. I said, well, do you want a cup of coffee? No way, she said. I want to get undressed, get into bed, and go to sleep as soon as I can. Well, that suited me fine, because I had waited to undress before she got here, because I was afraid if I got into my pajamas and got into bed before she came, I'd be dead to the world by the time she got here. So now it was safe to undress. So what did Sam say? I called through the bathroom door. I'll tell him in the morning, she said. He doesn't know? Not yet. Oh boy, I thought. More rapids ahead. But truth was, I was too tired to care. We both raced to get into our beds and pulled the covers up to our chins. When I turned out the light, the digital clock read 3:23. Lying in the dark, I couldn't help myself. Jude, do you think it was kids? I'm too tired to think, she said. Well, the tires maybe in the driver's window, but the sign being torn in two and bust draped over the steering wheel, that feels personal. Go to sleep, she said. So I did. Who can that be? I rolled over and looked across at Jude. She rolled over and put the pillow over her head. It's gonna be me, I thought. I threw off the covers and sat up. I'm coming, I shouted. On the way to the door, I staggered over to the window and I opened the drapes. The day was overcast, but it had obviously started without Jude and me. I put on my bathrobe and I opened the door. Bunny Thurlow, as I live and breathe. I'm sorry to bother you, she started. No bother, I said. Come on in, I'll put on the coffee. Oh, she said, I can only stay a minute. May told me that the bus had been vandalized and it's with the police. I really only offered her coffee because I wanted it. I wondered if it would be rude to leave her standing in the doorway and go start the coffee. Do you know when the bus will be ready so we can go to Victoria, she asked. I decided I didn't care. I turned and started for the coffee pot. We don't know anything yet, I called over my shoulder. Was there much damage? They broke the driver's window and they slashed the tires and the seats, I said. Hooligans, she said. So where have you been for the last day and a half? We missed you and nobody seemed to know where you were. Oh, she said, you'll never guess. I ran into a friend that I haven't seen in ages, and we talked forever, and I just forgot about the time. Well, that's interesting, I said. She's got one story for Frida, one story for May, and another one for me. Well, what about yesterday, I said. Oh, well, she asked me over to her house, and so I went. But we left so early, and I came back so late, there was nobody to tell. I thought about confronting her, but I hadn't had my coffee yet. And besides, I didn't know her that well. I wanted to talk to Frida or May first. So, will you let me know when the bus is fixed? Well, you know what you should do if you're going to be with your friend is you should leave her name and telephone number so I can let you know when we're ready to go. I couldn't help myself. Maybe it would be simpler if I just called Frida, she said. I have her cell number. Well, the bus isn't going to be ready before this afternoon, I said. You sit down, have your cup of coffee, relax. I'll call this afternoon. And she let herself out. Well, that was a load of bull fragrance, Jude said from under her pillow. I poured her a cup of coffee and put in that whitener stuff and took it over to her bed. There's no use staying in bed, I said. The day isn't going to get any better if you do. She said, I'm visualizing a happy day, bathed in sunny yellow. She put her feet onto the carpet and took the coffee from me. Ugh, I need real cream. I need muffins. Apparently her visualizer broke. I was just going to suggest that I go see if Carolyn had any left when there was another knock on the door. Who is it? Oh dear, it's Mary Lou, O'Mara. I know it's early, but could I have a word, please? I opened the door and Mary Lou scurried into the room. She took in Jude and I in our bathrobes and with coffees in our hands. Oh dear, she said, I don't suppose you've had time to check on the bus, have you? I guess it's late enough for me to phone Clarence, said Jude. Why don't you sit down and have a cup of coffee, I said. I motioned to the little table in front of the window and Mary Lou took a seat. Thank you. Cream would be fine. I mean that whitener. I poured her a cup and set a packet and a spoon down next to her. It's nearly 9 now, said Mary Lou. That's why I wanted to talk to you. I was thinking of getting Bryce to go with me to the Duncan Farmers Market. Carolyn says that there's a bus that stops right outside that goes to the market. And I'm just worried that if we don't keep him occupied, he'll do something that we all regret. I mean, I feel like we've already caused enough trouble on this trip, and he's just so young and unconscious. I'm sure he'll outgrow it. If I wasn't, I'd kick him. I may kick him anyway, she said, putting down her spoon. Well, I'm sure the bus won't be ready before the farmer's market is over, I said. Do you think it's safe, she said. Frankie is concerned that he might run into those men. Well, if he does, said Jude, he can bring them back here and give them the music box. Frankie thinks they might be more dangerous than we know. She thinks that maybe he should stay close to the hotel. I'm just so worried that if it takes too long to fix the bus, he'll get bored. And he just doesn't think, she sighed. I'll talk to Frankie, I said. Where is she? Oh dear, she has one of her stress colds. She's lying down in our room. Let me call Clarence, said Jude. So while Jude called Clarence and Mary Lou sat at the table and sipped her coffee and looked out at the bay, I took my clothes into the bathroom to get dressed. I was interested to know that Frankie thought there might be danger too, and I wanted to talk to her and see if she heard or saw anything. By the time I got out of the bathroom, Jude knew that Clarence had already scored 4 new tires for the bus and had made an appointment to get the window replaced. He thought that he could have the bus ready by 3:30, but not before. Mary Lou left saying that she would go down and tell Frankie I would be down to talk to her. We decided that we wouldn't make a decision about the Duncan Farmers Market until after I talked to Frankie. After Mary Lou left, I looked at Jude and I asked, "What do you think?" She lifted her chin and she closed her eyes and she said, "The colors are still swirling, but a pattern is beginning to emerge." I said, "Quit channeling Amaryllis." "I'm not channeling her," she said. "I'm watching her paint. And soft shadows are emerging." "They're not soft," I said. "They're thugs and they're dangerous." "But how dangerous, Mavis? Think about it. They could have put sugar in our gas tank, water in our engine, or ripped out our electrical system." "So you're thinking that they didn't really want to stop us, they just wanted to slow us down or scare us? Or they could just be high school kids who know the difference between mischief and deep doo-doo." "Well, if they do," I said, "they're smarter than Bryce." "Jude, Mavis, open up," a voice from the hallway interrupted. Jude went to the door and opened it. There stood May with a plate of muffins and donuts. She pushed the plate at Jude and made her way into the room. "I got you these before they were all gone," she said. "Oh, you angel." Jude said, "Come and join us. I have something for you." May, without her poles, moved slowly to the table. Jude put the goodies on the table and then went and rummaged in our closet and got out May's knitting bag. She said, "I think I found all your supplies," she said, "but I can't vouch for the condition they're in." "Thank you," said May. "Oh, this is a complete mess. I'm going to have to deal with this later. What happened?" Jude shrugged. "I don't know," she said. "I found it in the middle of the floor." "Well, what do you know about the bus?" It's going to be ready at 3:30. Well, that's good, said May, because that gives Bunny and me time to go see the museum. I want to spend as much time as I can with Bunny because I'm very worried about her. Speaking of Bunny, I said, she was here earlier and she told me a story that was completely different from the one she told you, which incidentally is different from the one she told Frida. Oh, she said, she's really in trouble. I'll go find her right now. Well, I think she's gone, I said. Well, she promised me that we could go to the museum together. Well, you can check, I said, but I think she's buggered off. So as May was leaving, she ran into Raven coming in the door with good news. Wayne and some of the other guys were coming down from Ivy Green to help Clarence with the bus. Yay! How's Frida? Jude asked. Raven rolled her eyes. She has a lot on her plate. She gets mad at her body because she thinks she has to go fast and then her body slows down. It makes everything worse. Well, she doesn't have to do everything herself, I said. We can help. She knows that, said Raven. She's just not thinking too well right now. I'll go talk to her, said Jude. She's trying to rest. Maybe if you go later. Jude let it go. I mean, we both knew what it was like to have all the balls you're juggling land on your head at once. Sometimes you just needed time by yourself before you faced people. After Raven left, Jude decided this break in the visitors was a perfect time to get dressed. She put on her blue jeans, which involved a bit of a jump to get the little button done. And then she was just getting into her sweatshirt when there was a thunderous knock. Oh, who could that be? Irene, good to see you. I lied. The receptionist told me the bus has been vandalized. Would you like to come in, I said. And yes, it has. What did Sam say? Jude and I exchanged panicked looks. We realized that the traffic had been so busy this morning, we hadn't had time to call Sam, and it would be very dicey if Irene was the first one to tell him about the bus. Jude took a big breath and said, we were just about to call him. Is the bus operational? She asked. It will be by this afternoon, Jude said. Do you think we can keep to the schedule in Victoria and make the ferry? Jude blew out her lips. Well, she said, if everything goes according to schedule, we'll make it to Butchart Gardens and we'll keep on schedule. If something goes wrong, I'm pretty sure we can make our ferry reservation on Monday. Did you file a police report so we can make an insurance claim? Yes, said Jude. Then don't phone him. We stared at her. He'll just get all excited and he'll come over here and he'll just get in the way. You have done everything we need to do. He can have his fit on Monday when we get back. Are you sure? I said. Yes, she said. I'm having a good time and I don't want him to ruin it. Well, I suppose we could do that, said Jude, but if he gets mad, will you tell him it was your idea? I'll see how the rest of the trip goes. And she turned on her heel and marched out. Who knew? I said. Now I really want to know what she's doing when she's not with us, said Jude. That's so much fun. Well, I guess that's everybody who's not sick in bed. I'll go see Frankie, I said. Wait a minute, said Jude. Check out the window. I looked out the window. There was Bryce, tentatively approaching our patio door in the jeans and a hoodie. He made a tent of his fingers and he peered in our door and then he leapt back when he saw the two of us looking at him. I went to the door and opened it. Can I help you? I said. You're the bus drivers, right? Right. What did the cops say about the bus? Tell you what, I said, it's kind of cold with the door open. Why don't you come in? He looked uncertain. We have donuts, I added. He put his hands in his pockets and he slouched through the door. I closed it. He sat down at the table and picked up a coconut chocolate glazed donut and bit into it. What about the cops, he said. What about them, Jude asked. Do they think Chris did it, he asked. They don't know. What do you think, said Jude. He paused and stared into his half-eaten donut. "This whole thing is so screwed up," he said. "Got any coffee?" I poured the rest of the pot into a styrofoam cup and set it down in front of him. "Where'd you meet this Chris guy anyway?" Jude asked. "Through Tom," he said. "Is Tom here?" I asked. "Nah," he said. "Well, you told your mother you were with Tom," said Jude. Oh, Bryce shifted uncomfortably in his chair when he realized that we had been talking to his Gigi and Gaga about him. "Well, I only saw that Chris the one time, and I sure didn't think he was going to go all hairy over losing a music box that he didn't even want." I looked at Jude. She'd closed her eyes. I thought, she thinks he's telling the truth. So do I. "Chris would just call. I'd give him the music box. That is, if you ladies would give it to me." "Not bloody likely," I said. "We'll give it to you when Chris calls," said Jude. "Well, why don't you just give it to me now? I can take care of myself, and I don't want to get the old ladies in trouble." "You're a true gentleman," I said. Unfazed by my sarcasm, he picked up the last donut and confided in us. "I owe Gaga. If she hadn't tutored me, I never would have made it through that stupid geometry course. Gigi too. They're cool." "Well, but what can you tell us about Chris and these other guys? They don't seem to like him very much." That was an understatement even for Jude. "What other guys?" he said. "Well, when we were leaving Ladysmith, Mavis saw two guys go up on the egg hall steps and punch Chris in the gut." "I don't know nothing about no other guys," he said. "Do you think they did the bus?" "Well, the cops haven't ruled it out," I said. I didn't feel that I needed to add that the cops were at the very least dubious about the existence of Chris and the other guys. "They think it was local kids." "Yeah, right, for sure. I would have done it myself when I was younger." God give me strength. "So look, this whole thing would go a lot smoother if you just give me the box to give to Chris." "Not gonna happen, buddy," said Jude. "So what am I supposed to do?" Jude and I looked at each other. "For now, go back to your room and wait for Chris to call. We may have something for you to do later, but we'll come and tell you. And remember," said Jude, "stick to the plan. If Chris calls, come and get us, and we'll go with you to give the music box back." "Yeah, sure, right." He catapulted himself out of his chair and left through the patio door. I suppose we should be thankful that he opened it first. "Well, I see why Mary Lou is nervous about him," Jude said. "We should go see Frankie," I said. "You go. I'm going to keep my eye on Bryce. His bad judgment could rear its ugly head at any minute." Frankie was curled up under a blanket when I got to their room. Mary Lou was on her way up to the front desk to get more tea bags. The first thing I said when Frankie sat up was, "You're not dressed the same." It just popped out of my mouth. "No," she said, "we didn't feel like it. And I'm the one with the red nose and the head cold." "Mary Lou tells me that you're worried about Bryce going to the farmers market," I said. I thought I should cut to the chase because she didn't look like she had a long conversation in her. "Well, what do you think?" Frankie said. "His story has so many holes in it. I just can't help feeling that there's danger somewhere." "I agree with you," I said. "When we were leaving Ladysmith, I turned back to see two guys go up on the steps of the egg hall and punch Chris in the gut, and he doubled over and pointed at us, and one of those guys gave me a really nasty look." Frankie laid back down and gazed at the ceiling. "Do you think that's why this Chris David guy has not come back to the hotel? And why he hasn't contacted Bryce about getting the music box back? I hate to say this, Frankie, because he's your great nephew, but how do we know for sure that Bryce hasn't been contacted?" Frankie swung her feet onto the carpet and said, "That's a very good question, Mavis. Just let me get my sweater and let's go ask him." When we got to Bryce's room, he wasn't there. Frankie actually pursed her lips. Let's go find Jude, I said. She was going to keep an eye on him. Well, we couldn't find Jude either. I said, well, maybe they're at the rock cod. On the way through the lobby, I said to Carolyn, have you seen Jude and Bryce? Yes, she said, they went with Mary Lou to the farmer's market. She asked me to give you these, and she handed Frankie some tea bags. Thank you, Carolyn. Frankie said, cool as a cucumber. When our whole world had blown up, I wanted to yell, what the hell are they thinking? Instead, I said, what should we do? I think we should go to Duncan and locate them, said Frankie. That's when I realized that the more upset she got, the cooler she talked. She was talking really cool. We need wheels, I said. You can take my car, said Carolyn. I'm on till 6. You have a car, I asked. Well, it's my brother's, but he let me drive it today. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. I tried to imagine a universe in which that could possibly be true, but not for long. Where is it, I said. It's at the end of the parking lot near town. Here are the keys. It's a Mustang. A Mustang. Blast from the past. My first and only new car was a red Mustang. Oh, I babied that car. I had special wax, tar remover, rim cleaner, Armor All. First scratch I got in the paint, I cried. When I got to the end of the lot, there was Carolyn Brothers' Mustang. Also red, definitely not babied, probably the same year as my old one. Let me tell you something about the Mustang. It's built low to the ground. And the 2-door model, you have to make yourself into a pretzel to get into the back seat. And the doors weigh a ton. Now, when I was 20, none of these features bothered me. Now that I'm 68, they rose up to bite me in the bum. Fortunately, we didn't have to make ourselves into a pretzel because there was only 2 of us. We did have to sink, however, into the bucket seats, which made our bums lower than our knees, and when I closed the door, I practically dislocated my shoulder. I'm really glad we're going to look for them, I said to Frankie. Jude thinks she can handle everything, and she is way over her head on this one. Well, Mary Lou is quite sensible, said Frankie, though she is protective of Bryce. Bad combo, bad combo. When we got to Duncan, we found parking near the mound, so we went to that market first. Sheesh, you would not believe what they were selling. Did you know you could get milk out of a water buffalo and make it into yogurt and cheese? And emus give oil and make soap? It was a Christmas market, so there were way more present type things than there were vegetables, though they did have more chard and kale than I care to eat in a lifetime. At the first booth we stopped at, they were selling beautiful wooden carving boards and kitchen utensils. I pointed to Frankie and asked the vendor if she'd seen a woman who looked like that. No, she said, but you shouldn't have any trouble finding her. The Christmas market is about the third of the size of the one in the summer. We passed booths with sweaters and jewelry and stained glass, every imaginable squash, garlic the size of softballs, 6 different colors of potatoes. Honey, if I hadn't been so nervous, I would have shopped. But it was hard to concentrate on looking for Bryce and Mary Lou and Jude because there were so many things to look at. We crossed the road to the train station market and we stopped at an apple stall. They were selling apples and applesauce and apple vinegar and apple wine. They even had Cox Orange Pippins. I haven't seen those in ages. Do you think that's Jude? Frankie asked. I followed her finger to see a woman moving away from the smoked salmon booth. If I hadn't recognized the short curly hair that I love to run my fingers through, the XL Bus Company jacket would have been a dead giveaway. Jude, I called. And I started to run, and then I thought, no, I can't, I'll lose Frankie, and besides there's a crowd, and let's face it, that ship has sailed. So I went as fast as I could. yelling, Jude, Jude. Everybody seemed to be looking at me except Jude. And then when we got up to where she'd been, I realized there was an entire choir singing Christmas carols. And Jude had crossed the street to go into the town square. So Frankie and I followed her. But the passage was narrow and there were booths, there were people buying and selling. There was a candy store doing a landmine business. Many people gave us a rude look until we finally burst into the town square. And then we didn't know where to look. I mean, there was a German Oompa band playing Christmas carols. There was a Santa Claus booth with a line of children that snaked around the square. And some guy had set up a pen right in the middle of the square, and he had live llamas in it. The llamas had drawn a crowd. They looked bored. There she is, I shouted, even though Frankie was standing right next to me. I blamed the Oompa band. Jude was leaning into the pen trying to pet one of the llamas. The woman doesn't have the sense that God gave geese. We hurried as fast as we could to get to Jude's side. I will say this, elbows were involved. When we finally got up to Jude, the first thing out of Frankie's mouth was, "Where are Mary Lou and Bryce?" Jude looked surprised. "Oh, they went back to the mound. Bryce wanted to buy a belt buckle." "You didn't think to keep together?" I said. "Well, no need," said Jude. "I have Mary Lou's cell phone number and she has mine." "I think perhaps you should call her now," said Frankie. "Well, the bus isn't going to be ready till 3:30, said Jude. "Yes," I said, "but we have to leave right at 3:30 or we'll miss the light up. So we have to get everything ready before that." "All right," said Jude. So she got out her phone and punched in a number and held it to her ear. And then she said, "Mary Lou, when you get this, call me back." She didn't answer, but I could go over to the mound and get her. I said, "Oh, no," I said. "We're all going to go together, so when we find them, we can go directly to the car." Sounds like a plan, doesn't it? And it would have worked if we had found them. We went back to the mound. We went back to the city square. We went back to the train station. There were 5 different booths selling belt buckles, and Bryce and Mary Lou weren't at any of them. "Well, I suppose they could have gone back to the hotel without me," said Jude. "I would have done it in a heartbeat, but I didn't think Mary Lou would." "I have a bad feeling about this," said Frankie, and she took out her phone and phoned the hotel. "Me too, sister," I said. "Oh, I didn't mean it like that." She patted my arm, and when Carolyn came on the phone, she said, "Carolyn, is my sister there?" Her face turned white and crumpled like a hanky. "We'll be there in 15 minutes, she said. She hung up. "We have to go right back to the hotel," she said. "Bryce has called to say that he and Mary Lou have a ride to Butchart Gardens and they'll meet us there." "That doesn't make any sense," I said. "Let's go," said Jude. When we got back to the car, I made her do the pretzel and get in the back seat. All the way back to the hotel, Frankie kept trying to get Mary Lou on her cell phone. It didn't even go to voice message anymore. When we got back to the hotel, all the penny pinchers were gathered around the front desk. Frankie said, "What happened?" Frida said, "Bryce phoned the hotel and asked to be put through you to your room. When there was no answer, Carolyn put him through to me, and he told me that he and Mary Lou had a ride to Butchart Gardens and they would meet us at 8 Maids a Milking." "What?" The magic of Christmas is the 12 days of Christmas," said Frida. "Okay," I said, "but it still doesn't make any sense." "It surely does not," said Frankie. "Bryce might do something like that, but Mary Lou never would." "What if she was trying to protect Bryce?" Frida said. Frankie turned so pale, May helped her to a chair. "Did that Chris David guy ever come back?" I asked Carolyn. She shook her head. "I think we should call the police," said Frankie. "I think so too," I said, "but what exactly are we going to tell them?" "We're going to tell them that my sister and my great-nephew are being held against their will. And we know that because..." What teenage boy in his right mind is going to ask a bunch of old ladies to meet him at 8 Maids a Milking if he wasn't under duress, said Jude. "Well, that's a good point," I said, "but it's not proof." Look, said Frida, this is what I think we should do. Several of us have cell phones. I think we should go to 8 Maids a Milking and see what happens. If we need to call the cops, we can call from there. It could be dangerous, said Frankie. It's the magic of Christmas, said May. There's going to be hundreds of people around. So that's what we decided to do. Jude and I went back to our room to get ready. As soon as the door was closed, I started in. How could you be so stupid, I said. Oh, Mavis, don't start. We don't know what happened. They could be fine. You always make such a big deal out of everything. It is a big deal, you stupid cow. We've now lost 2 more of our people, and they could be in danger. What danger? Well, I don't know, but it has something to do with that damn music box. You have never been able to deal with things that don't go according to your plans. You've never been able to. Well, and you can't see 5 minutes ahead of yourself. You're so full of yourself that you have no idea how your actions affect other people. That's not true, she said. Well, what did you think was going to happen if you took Bryce and Mary Lou to the farmer's market when you knew that Frankie and I thought it might be dangerous? Well, I thought we'd shop, we'd have lunch, I'd maybe get to know Bryce a little better, maybe not be so judgmental. Well, what if Chris showed up? Well, then we'd bring him back here, give him the music box, end of story. What about the leather guys, I said. There's hundreds of people at the farmer's market. I doubt if they'd try anything, she said. Oh, she makes me so mad. She just sounds so sensible, and I just know it's not true. She always could out-argue me. I couldn't say why, but I knew it wasn't true. I just stuffed things in my pack and I left slamming the door.